Do you ever notice that subtle shift and sensation when you're moving from simply playing with your voice, exploring, navigating new territory, sound, testing out your flexibility, just playing and enjoying being in that curious space? And when we bring a lens of focus and attention to that, like we decide to look at it with a critical eye, or a way of saying, okay, what's going on here? What is happening with the sound? There is a part of our energy that kind of moves away from that active doing part, and it comes away into this external observation part. And this creates the sensation that we have a listener, an observer, an audience. So it's been of interest to me in my own practice, particularly with improvisatory work, that when this happens, in some way we are actually stepping into a medium of performance, because there's now an aspect that is listening, and that is inherently, we're connected when we're listening to our sense of aesthetic. It's kind of, we try our best in an exploratory, playful space, maybe to detach from that, so that it's not dominating the way that we are playing, and not creating any limitations on how we are exploring. And of course it can be helpful if we're working with particular repertoire to harness that kind of critical ear, and to really tune in to, like, what am I doing? Am I using the correct technique for a particular passage, for example? But coming back to this principle of play first and exploration first, and giving yourself permission to actually learn in that space that is a little bit more abstract and a bit more free. Often we get that feedback as we are in that space, and something feels good, that kind of creates a pause point or a reflection point where we go, oh, that's like great, let's drill down into that, let's focus in on that. So this is where this separation can happen, where we're then coming outside of ourselves, and we're listening. Not only are we listening, we're anticipating, we are drawing on memory based on a feeling of something that we've experienced, and then we're trying to emulate that or match that. So we're creating an expectation for ourselves, but then because part of our energy is actually away from the focused activity, and there's a split focus going on, we can't quite get there. And also there's a pressure created, there's a demand created by this part that's actually saying, okay, perform for me now. That might not be conscious and active in terms of an internal narrative saying, right, come on, we've got to do as we were doing before, but it does, and it can reveal itself as you go through your practice, and you're trying to get back into the flow of where you were. You're trying to go back in time to this sensation of like ease, of playfulness, where things were just flowing. And this can really shift the dynamic of your session, and it has been for me personally a point of frustration oftentimes, because then I'm aware suddenly that I'm trying to perform something that actually was born out of a space that did not demand that of me. So if you have ever experienced in a social dynamic that demand to perform, like, you know, oh, share a song with us, but there feels like there's a demand or pressure attached to that, rather than an invitation to freely step into the space and contribute to the space and offer yourself to the space as a conduit, as a channel for whatever wants to come through. This formality around the performative aspect can really stifle that vulnerable part that actually needs space, and it needs a sense of room around it where actually there's enough breathing here, there's enough of a territory and an expanse of a landscape, an internal landscape, where I can be called towards. I can actually let my body guide me in the process. I can let the sounds intuitively tell me where I need to go next, where I would like to go next. And that feedback that we're getting from the sounds that we're creating and the kind of energy shifts that are happening in the body, that becomes the guidance system at that point, rather than this sense of, okay, I'm now performing, and if it was an audience, what would they want to hear? And it's very difficult to then separate that from aesthetic frameworks and principles that may well be inspired by the music that we like to listen to, what we think is good, what we think sounds nice, what we think a voice should sound like. So these are all internal narratives and ideas that we have adopted as part of our kind of musical identity and our vocal identity, and that's very, very normal. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. They do help shape your personality as an artist, and as in terms of what is drawing you towards certain genres or certain styles of music to explore. They can be really, really helpful. But then I feel like it is additionally helpful to be aware of when we are actually being driven by this part, so that we can make a clear distinction in our practice space and in our playtime of, what do I want from the space today? Do I want a space where I am giving myself permission to flow organically and to explore, and to not create restrictions or limitations on what that might look or sound or feel like? Or am I in the space today specifically to practice my performance skills and my stage presence and my sense of my artistic identity? Because that then becomes something very different. There's a different quality of energy to that, and there's a different intentionality there. So just bringing in some anecdotes from my own practice space today, and I think that can neatly be under the umbrella of expectation. You know, what are our expectations about what we want from our space, and how can we ensure that we're setting the tone so that we can successfully navigate and enjoy what we're doing. And we might find that part of the way through our session, that intention shifts, that need actually shifts. We stumble onto something that is bringing our curiosity into another space. And if you have the time to explore and to indulge in that, then absolutely go for it and do that. That is part of the beauty of creating your practice space in the way that you want to. But yeah, let me know how your practice space time looks and what sort of things you explore when you're kind of coming into this. Yeah, like, what am I doing today? How am I going to begin? I'd be really interested to hear.